Oh, I thank you for having me here. I think our preliminary conversation was so good. It's like this has got to be great.
It's gonna be awesome. It's just gonna flow. I can already tell. And we're talking about something that everyone does, something that I didn't realize. I was listening to some podcasts that you've been on, and decoding dreams is something that is in your family. This is from what you know, it's at least 5 generations deep.
Right.
That's
Yes, it is.
incredible.
I mean, it's in fact, one interesting story that I've actually never told before is that there was a period of my life where I was going through a lot of spiritual teaching. So I was actually being taught while asleep in dreams. And one of my teachers actually happened to taught me about plants and healing using plants. Was actually a great grandmother of mine. And she was an Indian from the mountains of Trinidad, but I never met her. I never knew her, of course. And but I had to laugh because while she was teaching me these different things and making me aware of how to work with plants, I got from her, it's like you're like the rudest child in existence because I would disagree with her. Oh, I mean, it was just it was hysterical, but I mean, it was one of the things that I find that um it really is in the family, and it was actually ancestors that were actually kind of bringing up or bringing out this ability or this gift. So yeah,
Wow.
it's
I
definitely different.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. So am I correct when I say the first time that you realized you could decode dreams, you were about 8 years old?
I was 8 years old. It was about maybe one or so in the morning, as I remember noting the time when I had the dream. But what I dreamt was is that one of my aunts, the youngest of my three aunts, who's 90 now, but at the time, I was 8 years old. My cousins, my six cousins were, all younger as well. And I saw in this dream my aunt, well, I saw my cousins in the house. I saw them watching TV, and then I saw like a flash of light, like something exploded, and a fire broke out. And then I see, my cousins rushing, getting out, my oldest cousin getting them out of the house. And I see my aunt who was a nurse who worked at night, rushing up to the house and seeing it on fire. So she's, are the kids all here? Everybody's safe. My cousin says, yes, we all got out safe except for the dog. Okay. And the dream ended, and I noted the time, which was about one something, and I went back to sleep. I mean, it was weird. I mean, I hardly saw those cousins because they lived in another part of the city. They lived in Brooklyn. I lived in the Bronx. So it was like, you almost needed a passport to go to Brooklyn to see them. So I didn't see them that much. The next day, another of my aunts came by and she said, oh, gather whatever, clothing, this, that, the other that you have, because Aunt Daphne and the kids got burnt out last night. And I just kind of froze for a minute. And she's giving the details, just like, yeah, this happened. It was an electrical fire. Everybody got out safe except the dog. And it was just like, oh no, 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 no. I don't like this at all. I don't like because it was exactly like I had seen in my dream. Now, as an adult, looking back, I would say that, what happened was actually remote viewing.
Mm.
And because when my aunt told us like the timeline of when this fire broke out, it was about the same time that I had woken up and looked at the time. So in that sense, technically it was remote viewing. I was seeing it actually happening in real time. But to me at 8 years old, it was a dream. But it was a dream that just frightened me to death. I didn't like it. I didn't want that. I was just like, no, this is not for me. And so that began a period of really just kind of just kind of staying away from dreams and the idea of dreams. Not to say that I wasn't recording them, not to say that I wasn't paying attention to them, but I didn't talk about them. I didn't want to know. It was just like, no, this is too weird. I've got enough issues. I wore thick glasses because I was very nearsighted. And it's like, no, having Coke bottle glasses and being able to talk about dream. No, no, that's just too much. I can't. I just can't. So, it wasn't until many years later, as an adult, at a retreat that I went to in Morocco in 2017, that the penny finally dropped for me that, people were interested in dreams, that they would be interested in what I had to offer, and that the course that I had created and was sitting on my shelf for nearly 3 years actually could be used and monetized. And that kind of started me on this journey that I'm on now. There's some new things, some new initiatives. I'm working in a slightly different way now, and that's quite exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm working on it. But being that I've had so many haters and people stealing my work, I'm being very cagey about telling people what I'm doing at this point. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride. But what really, really defined for me that this was a gift and it was important was the fact that it did two things. One, it saved my life, and two, it brought back an old flame into my life.
Wow.
And we had a 25-year marriage. So
Wow.
I think dreams are important. Yes,
Absolutely. I
for
totally
sure.
agree. I love that you bring up the remote viewing aspect of it because when I was preparing for this and just thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about, why we dream. And it
Mhm,
makes complete sense because if we're conscious beings, if we're consciousness, and we come to
mhm,
this earth to experience consciousness in this human body, in this form, our consciousness
mhm,
is there when we die. We're learning this. This is being scientifically proven now. So it makes sense that the consciousness is still there and doing its thing while our body is resting at night, whether it's astral projecting
mhm,
or remote viewing or exploring another dimension or making up a story that we call a dream so that we can get messages and receive messages from it. You have kind of come up with like five categories kind of based around why we dream. Can you list out what
mhm.
those five are and then we'll kind of dive
Oh,
into them
sure.
more?
Yep. As I said, over the years of working with clients, because I'm also a qualified psychotherapist, I qualified in the UK, though I don't practice in the US. Um, but over the years working with clients, I identified some five basic dream types, five categories of dreams. You have your smokestack, you have your snapshot, you have your problem solving dreams, then you have your communal dreams, and then I have finally what I call the big medicine dreams. Those are the five categories, and there may be others, but those are the ones that I find that dreams generally fall into, whether they're my own or my client's dreams. So the snapshot dream is just like what it sounds like. It's just saying basically it's a little, I call it a dreamlet, the little dream that comes and it says, this is what's going on with your soul today. So it kind of frames a particular time, a particular feeling, a particular relationship, and just kind of holds it up and highlights it. So it's like, oh, have a look at this. This may be something that may be of use to you. So that's a snapshot dream. Now, the problem solving dreams are exactly what they sound like. I mean, our brains are functioning 24/7, 365. They don't stop. And if they do, you're in trouble. So, you
Yes.
know, what at night when the brain is actually just as busy in a way as it is during the day, it's doing the garbage detail, it's clearing out plaque from the brain, which can cause Alzheimer's. It is consolidating memory, which it looks like it's actually connected to our ability to learn things. And by the way, it's not just mammals that dream. There's a woman in the Amazon working with funnel spiders, and apparently funnel spiders dream too. Lab rats also seem to dream, and but all kinds of creatures dream. And what they're finding from this research is that they're gaining insights into how and why people dream. But that one of the things that have come out of this research is that it our dreaming seems to be linked to learning in some way, and neuroscience studies are bearing this out as well, so it's all starting to converge. So that's, the your problem solving dreams, or your brain is working like a subroutine on a computer. This is the greatest computer on the planet. It's working in the background to solve an issue, something that's a knotty problem, a customer problem with the customer, something going on in a relationship, whatever it is. And then you have to be attentive, because the answer may actually come to you from, totally from left field. You don't know. But if you're attentive, it may be something you see on TV. It may be something you hear in a song. It may be a random comment by a complete stranger. But it's about being aware enough to, when the answer comes to you, it's like a little light bulb goes off in your head. It's like, oh, okay, that's what that's about. So that's that's what the problem solving dreams do. Then you have the dreams that I call communal dreaming, and this is something that has been going on for time out of mind. Um, in the traditional cultures today, like among the Aboriginal people in Australia, dream time, or the Hopi and Navajo people here in the southwestern U.S., whose elders sit down and their great, 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 great grandchildren's future is being dreamed. In Africa and Asia, there's all places where there's still, great store set by dreams. They dream together. It's not just for the individual, it's for the community as well. I've had experiences like that myself, where I've dreamt with another person, and the details were slightly different, but essentially we were having the same dream at the same time. It's usually close relationships, spouses, parents and children. A friend of mine in London, well, in England anyway, he's not in London anymore. He was giving spiritual teachings, esoteric teachings to his one of his sons in a dream.
Wow.
To the son and a friend. And the son the next day comes to the dad and his wife, and they're sitting there. It's like, I had this really funny dream. And I was learning these words, and he started to recite something. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough that the dad knew that he had actually received the information that he was transmitting.
Wow.
I had a colleague that I worked with, another therapist, and she asked the question in her dream, and the next day the husband answered it. I mean, it was just, these things happen because psychically we're all connected anyway.
Yes.
Just before the pandemic broke out, I had clients literally from across the planet, all in different parts of the planet, and they were dreaming about bugs. They were dreaming about, insect infestations, bugs again. They were dreaming about Asia, or specifically China. I mean, so it's, and these were people, they didn't know each other. They were in different parts
Mhm.
of the planet, but energetically, because we're psychically all connected, they were picking up on this energy. The same thing with 9/11. People
Absolutely.
more than a year in advance were album covers were showing, God forbid, but I mean, it happened, but they're actually showing planes hitting the tower. This was
Mhm.
way before the event. So it was the kind of thing we can pick up, like you said, matter is neither created nor destroyed. It still floats around out there. And if we're in tune with it, we can capture and pull it down into our, individual consciousness. So it's all of everything that's ever been known and ever been done is out there. It's just
Absolutely.
floating around in the ether.
So this was around like 2018, 2019 or so. I was working in construction, and one of my coworkers, I'm going to use made up names just so I, keep their privacy. But we'll
Of
call him
course.
Bob. One of my coworkers, Bob, worked in the office with me. I had another coworker, Debbie, also worked in the office. We
Hmm.
didn't work out in the field.
Right.
And outside of the
Hmm.
office, Bob led worship for his church. And one week
Okay.
we were meeting as a company, and someone threw out the idea
Mhm.
that we go and support him that upcoming Sunday because he was leading worship. And it was just
Mhm.
kind of like one of those things, whoever can go, show up. And
Right.
the night before, the Saturday night before that Sunday service, I had a dream of Debbie. And Debbie had been trying to get pregnant for years, trying in vitro.
Mm.
It wasn't working. She was really close to just, I don't want to say giving up. She was just at the point where she was like, maybe this just isn't in the cards for us. And
Mhm.
the Saturday before the service, I had a dream about Debbie. It was one of the most vivid dreams I've ever had, and it was of her in the hospital in a bed holding a baby. And the next morning, I woke up. I felt in my soul that I needed to tell her this. And that's something
Mhm.
that I've had prophetic things come up in the past, and do I tell, do I not? That kind of thing that's a hard line to balance.
Mhm.
And I just
Yeah,
knew
it
deep
is. It
down,
is.
yes. And this one I just knew. I knew I had to tell her. So that Sunday morning was the Sunday. The Sunday morning that I woke up was the Sunday of the service. And I text her and I
Mhm.
just say, I'm going to see Bob perform. Are you going to be at service today? And I didn't hear back from her. And I get there, I'm watching. After the service wraps up, I'm talking to some of our coworkers, and I get a text from her saying, I'm sorry, I've been talking to Bob, um, I'm here. And we end up meeting up, and I tell her about the dream. And I say to her,
Mhm.
I don't know why, but I just have this knowing. This wasn't a part of the dream, but I just knew that she was going to get pregnant within a couple of months. I told her 2 months. And Debbie gets a smile from ear to ear, and she says, I just spoke to Bob. He had the same dream last night and just told me the same thing.
Wow.
And a month and a half later,
Wow.
she's pregnant. She now has 2 kids.
Okay. Wow.
So we were
Fantastic.
both, I guess, tapping into.
It goes exactly what I just said, that because that energy is floating around in the ether, anybody theoretically would be able to capture it. I'll give you a good example. Years ago, my first husband and I, we were up late and we decided that we were peckish and we were going to, go in the kitchen and see what we could find to eat. And we ended up creating, based on leftovers and stuff that we had in the fridge, we created something I call today Mexican lasagna. Now, years later, I have a cookbook here. Years later, that recipe turned up in a cookbook, and there's a lovely book that talks about this. It's like because things are floating around in the air, um, anybody can capture it, and if you don't capture it, somebody else will. So that recipe, which we created many years ago on a late night, somebody else wrote it and put it in a cookbook. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's just there. And physics will tell you that. The neuroscience, all of these things will tell us that quantum physics. I mean, I wrote my dissertation for my psychotherapy course around basically quantum physics, that things can happen simultaneously at different levels in different dimensions. So it may at one level be remote viewing, at another level it could be a prediction, having a prophetic dream. It just depends at what level you're perceiving it and what level it's being experienced at. I mean, that's the simplest way, rather than getting into complicated theory. That's like the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah.
Um, think of it this way. They used to have the old-fashioned spindles where you would stick messages on them.
Yes. Yes.
It was like a little spindle, and you'd stick a message, you'd write a message and then stick it on there. I mean, you're talking about old school now, really old school. I'm showing my age, but that's okay. Um, I mean, I think of the multiverse that they talk about these days in that way. Each sheet of paper that goes on that spindle represents a layer of time, different timestamps on those messages, different timelines, but they're all existing in the same place at different levels. And to me, that's the multiverse. It's that things are existing all together, all at the same time. We've had this conversation already in another timeline. We're going to have this conversation on another timeline, but it's all happening at the same time. That's that deja vu that you mentioned, that we've
Yes.
seen it before. Yes, you have, because our soul can travel, is not bound by time. It does it, there's no such thing as time. When I teach my students Reiki, for example, there's a symbol that says no past, no present, no future, no past. It's all the same stuff. So, I mean, and that's really, time is a human construct. It doesn't exist. You
Right.
know, look at it in the example of grief. Grief can be just as vivid today as the day 20 years later as the day the person died, 30, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, a generation ago, because that energy is neither created or destroyed. It can be transmuted, it can be changed, but it is not destroyed. So, and that's, that a notion that people find there, we live very left-brained lives. Everything has a start and everything has a finish. But traditional cultures, time is circular. Time spirals. It can double back. It can move forward. It can move back. And if you look at it, if you're standing in the circle, you're in the middle of the circle. Depending on which way you look at the circle, you could be looking at past, you
Mm,
could be looking at present, or you could be looking at future. It's all a matter of perspective. Where are you mentally or spiritually is where you find yourself. I'm not a scientist, but I mean, I see in terms of my work how quantum theory and quantum mechanics and all of that, um, neuroscience and everything just comes together. I mean, it's no mistake that Einstein was a believer. It's no
mm,
mistake. It's like you cannot deny the existence of some kind of intelligence in the universe because it works perfectly when
ab-
humans aren't involved, that is.
yes.
It
We
works
can get out of
perfectly.
our own way.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the kind of thing that I find it fascinating. And maybe not everybody sees it the way I do, but I mean, it's all of these things, whether you understand the theories or not, you see it every day in your life, and people are largely unaware.
Yeah.
And that's the real problem. People,
Yeah.
dreams are, as I, mentioned, the result of cheap wine, cheese at night, whatever it is, whatever excuse people come up with.
Yeah.
Um, but there's so much more than that. Like I
Absolutely.
said, for entrepreneurs, what Google are you sitting on that you dreamt about and have not followed through on? Google, result of a dream. Double helix of DNA, result of a dream. Frankenstein, can't get no satisfaction by the Stones or yesterday by the Beatles. All the result of dreams. Irons, all kinds of stuff that we use every single day were the result of dreams. So, my question to people is always, what are you missing out on? Are you missing out on a Google? You're sitting on a freaking gold mine and you're ignoring it because you think it's the result of bad cheese? Huh. I just have. Okay. If that's what, if that's what you want to do, go right ahead. But, there's so much energy, there's so much power, there's so much life-changing information or life-saving information in our dreams that we just don't pay any heed to, which is a shame. Our lives would be,
Yeah.
I think, a lot better if we listened more to the
Yeah,
wisdom that we have within us instead of listening to everybody else.
absolutely.
The big medicine dreams are the dreams that are so clear and so powerful that even years later, you may forget details, but you never forget the message of the dream or never forget the dream itself. I mean, as I said, dreams like that are literally life changing. A dream like that got me from California back to London and marrying an old flame. And we were married for 25 years until he passed away a few years ago from cancer. Then, another dream literally saved my life. And I hate to think what my life would have been if I had not listened to those dreams because they saved me from 9/11. So, when I say, dreams are important and have important information, they really do. And I can recall those particular dreams vividly, absolutely vividly. Even, it's been years later. And that dream that I had about 9/11 was more than a year before it happened. So I was actually back in London when everything happened. But I used to walk, I was a stockbroker. I walked through those towers every single day. Whether it was just coming and going from work, I walked through the towers. Whether it was executing my duties as a stockbroker, I walked through those towers or were in the towers. So it was really serendipitous, if you will, that I was not there when this all happened. But if I had made listened to those dreams, made a critical decision to return to London, and my visa to return back to the UK, 2 days, I got it. It took me. I was fighting with them to get a visa for my husband to join me in New York. But in 2 days, I had my visa to return to London. And what's interesting about it, the nightmares that I was having every single night about shipwrecks and stormy seas and all kinds of madness stopped. They just stopped. Just as suddenly as they started, they stopped. I never had them again. And it wasn't until I was back in London and going back to work uh, from lunch because I worked near home. And I got to the doctor's office where I worked, and I see people running around and screaming, crying. It's like, what the hell? And I heard somebody, tower, hit. And my mind went completely blank. And I knew in that second what those dreams were about. I knew. So it was the kind of thing that, yeah, dreams are really, really, really important or can be. Nightmares are interesting. When I've worked with people around their nightmares, it's interesting because when we go through the nightmare, we break it down. Quite often, the reaction it's like, is that all that means? Is that what that is? Is that it? So the dream that was this big gets cut down to size. And it's usually an expression of a concern or worry that we have that we're not consciously focused on. It's kind of like nagging at us at the back of our minds. Um, and the dream kind of highlights it and says, listen, you're nattering away about this. Would you like deal with it so I can stop reminding you about it? I mean, and that's pretty much what it is. And once we acknowledge that we have this fear, this anxiety, this anger, whatever it is, around an issue or a person or a relationship, or whatever the case may be, we find that the importance or impact of the dream diminishes or even disappears because you've gotten the message. Now, with regard to using those nightmares or dreams, what they're doing now in terms of research with people suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they're working with in tandem with people who are learning from people who are lucid dreamers. I mean, they literally are observers of their own dreams, and teaching or helping people with PTSD to use lucid dreaming to be able to overcome the the stress disorder.
Wow.
Because, well, what happens is because they're consciously dreaming, you're dreaming. If you don't like what's rolling out, you can say, no, I'm not having that, I'm changing it. Now, I found out not too long ago that a cousin of mine does this all the time. She's always had the ability to enter her dreams, and it's like, oh, I don't like that, and changes it. She
Wow.
has a natural ability. Most of us have to learn how to do
Mm.
that. But empowering people with stress disorders to be able to be control that fear response and take back control of their lives is absolutely amazing, and it's all because of their dreams or nightmares in this case.
This is incredible. This just lucid dreaming, you talking about this has me thinking about because something that just comes up on the podcast a lot is how our thoughts create our reality and the power that we hold within us. And you talking about, I mean, the lucid dreaming is us create it's us controlling the dream, the outcome, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
through our
Yeah.
thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's the consciousness, it's the
Yes.
awareness. So it just goes to show, it's just more evidence that just goes to show that truly our thoughts really are creating our reality, and they are, and we are in control, and we do have power, a lot of it.
Yes, we do. Yeah, but see, we hand over that power to our preachers, our teachers, our lawyers, our doctors, every bloody body but ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, we're willing to take as gospel virtually anything everybody else says, but we don't put any credence in our own inner wisdom. How many times have you may have said, or others, or I may have said, or others may have said, I just knew such and such wasn't right. I just knew it. I just knew. It's like, well, why did you do that anyway if you knew it? Because you have no faith in yourself. You don't believe yourself. You believe everybody else, but you don't put faith in your own wisdom. And that's part of the problem as well. People are so willing to kind of relinquish their responsibility, their power. Think about that. It's
Yeah.
about taking responsibility. And that's something that people seem to struggle with these days, is
Yeah.
actually taking responsibility for things, and for various reasons. It's just that it's almost being infantilized a bit. We need to be spoon fed,
Mm.
kind of. So it's like, well, as long as somebody else is taking the reins, oh, okay. I'm happy with that, as long as it's going okay for me. It's only when things start to go wrong and the wheels fall off that people start to scream. And it's like, well, where were you? Why didn't you have oversight of this before? Why did you wait till they get to crisis proportions before you realize that there's a problem that needs to be resolved? So yeah,
Yeah,
it involves a whole lot of issues that I think people don't really think about at all.
absolutely. Have you noticed that there are certain symbols that are kind of universal in dreams?
Yeah, I laugh. I say that usually you say that sex, death, and mothers-in-law are like universal symbols in dreams. Because we all go through that. Or most of us, and even no matter what kind of relationship, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you're going to have in-laws or outlaws, depending on who you're talking about. But It's the kind of thing that, yes, there are certain things, certain symbols that can be common to people. But like I said, you know, the pre meant the three main ones that I can name is like symbols related to those three things.
Interesting.
Relationships, yeah. But there are other things that come up. There are symbols that Freud and Jung and others have talked about that can be universal. I mean, not perhaps in their physical representation, but in their meaning. For example, the symbol of wholeness psychologically is a circle. It's self-contained. And when children psychologically start to become separate beings, separate from mommy and principally and daddy, when they start to draw, they start drawing circles. So it's like
Wow.
they've become a self-contained unit as opposed to being, psychically connected to mom principally and dad. But I mean, it's there's certain things that are symbolic that are represent all people everywhere, but how it appears in a particular culture may differ. But when I work with a client around their dreams, it's like, remember, dreams act as in terms of metaphors, as if. So it's about not looking at the symbols in the literal sense. It's looking at it in the symbolic sense. What does that evoke for a person? But the important thing is to be able to link that back to what's actually going on in your waking life, because the one of the purposes of dreams is to uh, encourage equilibrium, mental equilibrium, so that if we're out of whack in some aspect of our lives on the waking level, our dreams will reflect that and be out of whack and outrageous as almost as a counterweight, as a counterbalance. So that if you're really doing stuff that's really outrageous in waking life, then your dream life is going to be equally outrageous. And I think I used the example of the church lady from the very old Saturday Night Live shows, where she was pointing her finger at everybody, and there everybody's immoral, everybody's loose, everybody's slack, blah 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 blah. But and I say, well, in behind closed doors, church lady was having dreams about having orgies. So the more out of whack we are in our waking lives, the more out of whack and outrageous dreams will become, to show that the imbalance. And hopefully, if we're conscious of it, we'll start to come back towards the middle, so that we're more or less in equilibrium. But that is the one of the principal purposes of dreams, is to be able to help us to maintain homeostasis, staying on an even keel throughout our body systems. Now, just to give you on a practical level what that may mean, there was a study done and I did a live on this years ago. And because I used to work on Wall Street, it struck me in particular because I saw it in real time. And what this particular study showed is that men in particular, when they were sleep deprived, not only their sleep patterns were disturbed, they weren't dreaming properly, but they would take greater risks. And I saw that as a banker during it's like I said, I'm really showing my age, but when the FBI went into my bank, I was working for a French bank on Wall Street at the time, during the era of Boski, when they were doing all of that skullduggery with regard to investments and whatnot. The FBI was investigating our transactions. They finally tracked down who was doing what, and all but the point of this is that when people are sleep deprived, when they're not firing on all cylinders, if their dreaming is not be uh functioning, their dream state isn't functioning properly for whatever reason, whether it be lack of sleep, this, that, the other, you start to make bad decisions, very bad decisions. That was case in point with, the financial scandals in the 80s, in banking, because you had all of these hot to trot young stockbrokers making millions in their 20s, but they were doing risky stuff, which we all ended up paying for a few years later when the bubble burst. So
Mm,
it's not just about um uh dreaming. It's about taking care of ourselves in a more holistic way, because
mm,
when we're not firing on all cylinders, we start to make stupid mistakes, whether at a private level or on a global level, because the 80s, the system crashed. Why? Because you had these young men who living on cocaine and coffee, because I would see them, you know making lots of money, but doing it in very, very risky ways. The safeguards that we have with regard, internal safeguards that we have with regard to making decisions, just cuts off. It just switches off completely, because we're sleep deprived and don't know what we're doing. And
wow.
therein comes the problems.
This is reminding me
Yeah,
about just other things that affect our dreams and or nightmares. You know, medications can affect your dreams. And what are some of the
absolutely.
other things outside of medication that we know can affect them?
They say that 80% of the things we die of are related to stress. I would say 100% of the things we die of are related to stress. I mean, even the expressions that we use. What's eating you? It's probably an ulcer.
Mm,
I mean, even the language we use can give clues as to what is going on with us.
yes.
So, yeah, it really is about um, paying attention and being aware, and not only paying attention and being aware, but being willing to actually take action,
Yeah.
and to change things. Um, there, we are, as you say, we are what we think.
Mm,
And if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. It really is a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. There's interesting. Um, I remember some years ago now in the UK, there was a special on TV on the BBC, and they were looking at acupuncture. Now, I mean, this seems like a little bit off on a limb, but I'll bring it all together in a second. Now, this woman was having brain surgery. She's talking to the doctors. They're working on her brain. She's awake and talking to them, because they need her to be awake to make sure they don't cut anything they shouldn't. Um, and the only anesthesia was acupuncture, because Western scientists could see this on their MRI scans or whatever it is that they were using to monitor. Therefore, a 7,000-year-old technique is valid, because they say technology says it is. It's like, are you kidding me? But my point here being is that there is so much wisdom that we just throw away or ignore, or think has no credence, because we're told it doesn't have any. And I think my principal job, if you will, in this life, is to get people to understand that they are sitting on a fount of wisdom. That's not to say it's all the wisdom in the world, but it's damn sure enough wisdom to help you make better decisions in your life and live a better life. That's more in alignment with who you are and what you need to grow and thrive. But people, again, like I said, people relinquish their responsibility. It's like, everybody else can do that. Everybody else can take over my life and control me and tell me what to do. It's like I said, it's being infantilized. Don't think for yourself. No critical thinking allowed here. We just feed you crap and you take it in and think it's the most delicious stuff in the world. Yeah.
We're getting there slowly but surely.
We're
We're
maybe,
it
maybe
out
another three
slowly
or
but
four
surely.
lifetimes if the planet hasn't been destroyed, we'll have evolved.
Oh man. So, Sheila, I know we all dream, but so many of us, and I know you've
Hmm.
heard this, so many of us don't remember our dreams. What are some
Hmm.
ways that people can start remembering them? What are some tips that you have for people?
Well, there's first of all, let me preface my remark by saying that um, the parts of a dream that have the most energy, the most charge behind them are what you remember. So you
Mhm.
may lose little details, that are less important, but the gist of the message you will remember. So people, oh, I forgot this and I forgot, I can't remember it all. It's okay. The part that you need to remember, you will remember. But I teach a 6-week course in dream interpretation, and I teach people simple techniques, give them simple tools to help them to, if they don't dream or they can't remember their dreams. Some people say they don't dream, others that can't dream or don't remember. I teach them different things that they can do that can help improve the odds with regard to remembering their dreams. But it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it becomes weak. So the very first thing I tell people to do is to start writing your dreams down, whatever you remember, because the 90% of our dreams are forgotten within the first 5 minutes of
Wow.
waking up. 5 minutes. You've already forgotten most of your dream. So, I mean, and that happens to everybody, even me. It's like, if I don't do certain things to make sure to capture that information, it will fade. It goes away. The tables and chairs of life get in the way and we forget. But what I tell people to do is a simple thing. Again, keep a little notebook and pad, and a little notepad and a pen or pencil by the bed, and write bullet points. You don't have to write War and Peace. You don't have to, turn the light on, wake up. Just jot down. It'll look like a 5-year-old was scribbling because you're half asleep and it's dark. Doesn't matter. What will happen is, as if you do that, it will, at least you have a few bullet points that will help when you start to wake up. You'll have a few bullet points that will help jog your memory with regard to the dream. There are other things you can do, but that's like the first and foremost thing, is just to start recording your dreams. And then once you start doing that, it's very interesting what starts to happen. The unconscious mind, um, which knows all about you, knows all your hopes, your fears, your dreams, blah, 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 knows everything there is to know. When it notices that, oh, you're paying attention to your dreams, are you? It starts to help you to understand. It starts to give you little clues. Or little prompts, so to help you to understand what's being transmitted. So the more you work with your dreams and start to learn your individual symbols, because a black cat for me is not a black cat for you in your dreams, um, then they start to kind of reveal their secrets to you because you're paying attention and you're starting to
So
learn and
profound.
understand the different symbols that are being presented to you because they come from us and they're about us. So, a symbol may come in the form of a sibling. Okay, right. What does that sibling represent for you? What qualities does that sibling represent for you? And then that's how you start to unravel the actual meaning behind a symbol is. What it's like, it's a visual shorthand. That's how I describe it. Visual shorthand. I see certain things or certain people or certain places, and I know, oh, okay. So this is what I'm thinking about around this particular thing, and start to play with that to really tease out the full meaning. But you have to start to recognize what those symbols are in order to be able to understand what they mean for you.
We have a lot of channelers on the podcast, and it reminds me a lot of their stories and when they first started channeling and how they were decoding certain symbols that were coming through. At first, the messages didn't make any sense, and then they started to pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
symbols, and now it's a language.
Yeah,
It's
well, exactly. It
incredible.
is. I mean, dreams have their own language, their own way of constructing information, putting information together, and that's literally a function of our brains. I mean, the left brain is the bean counter. It evaluates, it judges, it puts things in order. The right, and it's the neocortex, the new brain, and that's important because where dreams come from, and I laugh because I'm left-handed, so, and the opposite side of the brain controls the opposite side of the body. So I say left-handed people are the only people in their right minds because the right half of the brain controls, our dominant hand. But the right side of the brain is the reptilian brain, is or limbic brain, which is the oldest part of the brain that developed first. And that was before we had language. So we thought in pictures. So, saber-toothed cat, we see that, okay, that means run like hell because it's going to eat you. If you see that lovely fruit that nearly killed you the last time you eat it, stay away from it. So, that part of the brain thinks in images, if you will, or presents information in images. So you get this, you know, very basic image rich part of the brain that's trying to interface with the left brain, which is the bean counter. And the bean counter goes, what is this nonsense? This is BS. I'm not having it, and dismisses it as being complete nonsense. So which is why most people, because we're taught to be left-brained people, the bean counters, counting, evaluating, judging, blah 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 blah, um, just dismisses dreams as being so much nonsense. Now, interestingly enough, women and their intuition are much more in tune with dreams, to the point where they may have prophetic dreams about breast cancer long before the cancer manifests. And my theory behind why that women are more naturally in tune with dreaming and intuition in general is because the callosum that joins the two halves of the brain is much thicker and denser in women. And I think the reason for that is because we raise children, because we need to be able to make those leaps of faith. It's like that cry means he's in pain. That cry means she's just being fussy and wants attention. That cry means, oh God, we need to change the diaper. It's really full. So, and I think that's why, in terms of it, women are particularly more prone to being intuitive, to dreaming more, to being able to make those leaps of logic, because we have that dense connection between the two halves of the brain, so that we can guesstimate better especially when it comes to our children.
Before we go, I would love to give you an opportunity. We haven't touched on your book at all.
It's on Amazon. You can find it. Just look up my name, and you can find it on Amazon along with other books that I've written, or collaborated. I was a contributing author to. But it was just really kind of a description of my journey, and along with anecdotes from clients, with regard to their dreams and their experiences of working with me. So, I mean, like I said, um, it's about being awake and aware that your dreams have something to say to you.
Mm,
And even a little dream diary at the back so you can start recording your own dreams.
awesome. Any final words? Anything else that you want to wrap us up with?
Well, if you have poor sleep, the first thing I would say is take the Wi-Fi out of your room. There's only two things that should be going on in your bedroom, and one of them is not Wi-Fi. That's so, if you're not sleeping, you're doing the other thing. That's all you should be doing in your bedroom. Um, so because especially for children, those baby monitors, their brains are still forming. Not
Mm,
good. It's not good for adults, especially not good for children. But just the blue light and the constant pinging are going to disturb the production of melatonin and serotonin, which are important sleep hormones. Taking them out of the room makes a huge difference. I've had people who said they hadn't had good night's sleep in years. Doing that, they slept like a baby the next night. So
wow.
that's my big tip to people.
Sheila, this was lovely. You are amazing. This
Yes, it
was
was.
so
Thank you. I've
interesting,
really enjoyed
fascinating.
this.
Yes, this was
It's been
beautiful.
a
Thank you.
blast. I've had a good time. Thank you so
Me
much for
too.
having
Me
me. It's
too.
been
Thank
wonderful.
you.